I've been part of a team that's gone on to win 3 in a row. It's crazy really, and you kind of forget about it sometimes.
Like all the guys that I played with growing up through the years, like we're all still friends and everything. So it really is like it's a good family sense and a good community sense.
We had won in All Ireland in 97, 99, 2000. It's more local at your club. You know everyone, you know the setup. It's different than joining a county panel.
It was nearly like a kind of statement to say, we're here, we're ready to play. No one's going to push us over this year.
This podcast is sponsored by Declan Kirby GAA Star. Declan Kirby GAA Star is a children's GAA book written by primary school teacher and GAA coach Michael Egan. Follow the trials and tribulations of Declan Kirby and his team at Smithgreen Gaelic Football Club. The book is a very good read for any parents who are looking to get their children involved in Gaelic games. The book is available in Easons, Lidl and all good bookshops. It's also available to download on Amazon, so make sure to go and check it out. They're very good supporters of the channel and the page, so you'd certainly be doing me a good favour as well if you went ahead and checked the book out. So I do very much appreciate it. The link is in the description down below, and let's get straight into it. Yes, what's the story everyone? Welcome back to GAA Fan TV. My name is Aaron. I hope you're keeping well. I hope the form is good. And certainly the form is good for me because you know what? There's a whole host of cracking games happening this weekend in the GAA. I mean, we've got the Senior Football Championship final in Mayo. Knockmore looking to back up last year's county success and looking to make it back-to-back county wins, and Belmullet looking to win their first county title in the club's history. We've also got a cracking two Kerry Semi Finals to look forward to. St Brendan's are going up against Austin Stacks. That's going to be live on RTE. Can Austin Stacks win yet another county championship, and could it be Austin Stacks and Dr. Crokes in the county final, the two most successful clubs in Kerry Senior Football Championship history? And that's not to mention some of the other cracking games we've got going on as well. We've got a whole host of provincial games going on, 3 Leinster Club Senior Football Championship games taking place. We've also got a very interesting game happening in Ulster as Waddy Graham's Glen take on St Eunan's, and if that's not enough, we've also got 2 cracking games taking place in the Connacht Club Senior Football Championship. Can Mount Belmullet back up that victorious county championship win last weekend over Corofin with a win over Ballinamore? Sean O'Heslands, who are certainly a team that a lot of people are tipping to maybe go on a bit of a run. I was looking at some reaction online and some kind of when I was previewing this video, and look, listen, there's a few people who are tipping Ballinamore to win that game, so we'll get on to that a little bit later. Turla Strand, the champions of Sligo, they'll also be taking on St Kieran's of London, so that's another game worth mentioning. And we'll also be touching on some of this weekend's hurling action as well, although we will be mainly focusing on football because there isn't really too much happening in hurling this weekend. If you could drop a like and subscribe if you haven't already, I would really appreciate it. Helps the channel grow. It is completely free as well, and if you do enjoy this type of content, then yeah, let me know down in the comments below, and let me know your predictions as well for some of these big club championship games that are happening this weekend, because there is a lot of games certainly that's happening this weekend, and oh boy, I'm very excited. So we'll start with the Mayo Senior Football Championship final that is taking place on Sunday on TG Cahir as Belmullet take on Knockmore. I'm very intrigued to see how this game goes. I mean, both of these two actually played each other in the group stages. Belmullet won that game 2-4 to 4 points, and I have watched a good bit of the Mayo Senior Football Championship this year. I've bought some of the games on Mayo GAA TV, so I've seen a couple of these teams play already. I've seen Belmullet's game against Brafey, I've seen Belmullet's win against Westport, I've seen Knockmore against Ahamore, and I also seen Knockmore against Garrymore. So I've seen these two sides play quite a bit. I've kept quite in touch with the Mayo Senior Football Championship this year, despite the fact that this is the first game, I believe, that's actually been broadcasted on TV for the Mayo Senior Football Championship this year. So, but it's going to be very interesting. I mean, I didn't see Belmullet's win over Knockmore in the group stages, but I mean, Belmullet are coming in as the underdogs. I mean, and rightly so. They haven't won a county championship in their history, and they're coming up against a Knockmore side who of course won the county championship last year, but let's not forget that was Knockmore's first county title in 23 years. And to be fair to Knockmore, they do look like a very seasoned team. I mean, they responded very well to that group stage loss. They obviously got a big win over Ahamore in the final group stage game, and they do have very experienced players like Kevin McLaughlin, Darren McHale, David McHale as well. And I mean, they're definitely a team, in my opinion, that could potentially have a crack at an All-Ireland. If they get through this game, if they get through this Mayo Senior Football Championship, with it being the fact that they'll now have won 2, back-to-back county titles, they'll be playing the winners of Turlestrane and St. Kieran's in the semi-finals, which I would expect them to win. That would then put them into a Connacht Senior Football or Connacht Club Senior Football Championship final. They're definitely a team that could go on an All-Ireland run, and they do have very young players coming through at the moment as well, like the likes of Conal Dempsey, Aidan Orns, a player that a lot of Mayo fans will be very excited about, I'm sure. And you've also got Pearce and Keith Rutledge, who are 2 very exciting players coming off the bench. They actually got the goals in that win over Garrymore. So, I mean, Knockmore are definitely a team that could make a crack at an All-Ireland. Is it a bit too early? Are those players still a little bit young? Do they maybe, need more time in the oven? I mean, that's a weird expression. I don't know where that came from. In other words, maybe they just need a bit more experience in these games before they can really have a crack at winning an All-Ireland. But the age profile is very good of this team, and they do have the potential to start dominating the Mayo Senior Football Championship, which is actually why this is a big game for them, because Belmullet beat them in the group stages. Belmullet have probably had a tougher run to the final. They beat Westport, they beat Brafey as well, 2 very good sides. I mean, Brafey have the O'Sheas in there, and Westport obviously have a notable player in Lee Keegan. I mean, Westport are a very good side. They're no mugs, make no mistake about it. And it is Belmullet's first final since 1981. Their previous final to that was 1945. They've never won the Mayo Senior Football Championship, which is why this is certainly a huge occasion for them. With players like Ryan O'Donoghue and Owen McHale, Marty Boylan as well looks very impressive. Ryan O'Donoghue is certainly their standout player. I mean, he's the player who a lot of people know about. He's the player who's on the lips of most people's mouths, of course, when they're speaking about this Belmullet side. And he scored 1-5 the last day. He was very impressive, a decisive goal, of course. But probably the most impressive thing about Belmullet is probably their defence. They haven't conceded too much throughout the Mayo Senior Football Championship. Players like Mikey and Colin Barra, Owen O'Donoghue in defence as well, who is a brother of Ryan, of course, as well. They conceded 8 points against Brafey, 9 points against Westport, only conceded 1-4, as we said before, against Knockmore. So their defence is very, very good, and I feel like if they're going to shut out Knockmore, if they're going to keep them scoreless, then they've certainly got an opportunity with that defence. And if they can rely on a bit of Ryan O'Donoghue going forward, there's definitely a huge opportunity for Belmullet to pull off what would be a bit of a shock here in most people's eyes. And interestingly enough, Belmullet are actually 40-1 to win the All-Ireland. I'm not a betting man by any means whatsoever, but I mean, that's interesting odds, because if Belmullet come through this game, they'll then play the winners of Turlestrane or St. Kieran's. They'll then have a Connacht Club Senior Football Championship final. I mean, winning an All-Ireland is not inconceivable. Knockmore are 18-1 as well. I mean, look, listen, I'm not a betting man, but if I was to place a bet, you'll be looking at one of these two teams. I mean, winning All-Ireland's always going to be very tough when you look at what's coming through Ulster, Leinster, Munster. But I mean, It's a great bet, no doubt about it. I am going to go with Knockmore to win it by 3 though. I do think they're the seasoned team. I think they have a little bit more experience in there. Winning that county championship will stand to them last year. Belmullet, I mean, look, listen, we've seen with a lot of the club championships this year, they're very unpredictable, and we've seen a lot of clubs already end long waits, win their first county title. We've seen all sorts of shocks and surprises happen along the way, and it certainly wouldn't surprise me to see Belmullet win that game live on TG Cahir. But I'm going to go with Knockmore. Maybe it's the safe prediction, maybe I'm being a bit safe, but I just think they have a bit more going forward. They've more shooters, they've more players going forward that can contribute, whereas Belmullet, they rely quite a lot on Ryan O'Donoghue, and they're scoring. It's not like they've been free scoring throughout the championship. It's been low scoring a lot of the times, and I feel like if Knockmore can get a handle on Ryan O'Donoghue, I think they'll win this game by 3 points. And next up is the Tipperary Senior Football Championship final between Clonmel Commercials and Loughmore Castleiney. It should certainly make for an interesting game, no doubt about it. Clonmel Commercials are certainly the dominant force in Tipperary right now. There's absolutely no doubt about it. They won the Tipperary Senior Football Championship last year. They actually beat Loughmore Castleiney by a point in last year's final. It was certainly a very traumatic finish, a bit like last year's hurling final as well. And Clonmel, they got to the Munster final as well the last time the All-Ireland Club Provincial Championship season was around, the Munster Club Football Championship. They got to the final that year as well. So Clonmel are a very good side. I mean, obviously one of their standout players would probably be Michael Quinlivan, but you've also got Kevin Fahey in there, especially obviously a very notable, very decent defender for Tipperary, so he's in there. You've got Conal Kennedy, Jack Kennedy as well. So they're a very well seasoned side, and certainly you'd have to look at Clonmel Commercials as the favourites. They've won 3 of the last 4 Tipperary Senior Football Championships as well, which would tell you really why they're going in as heavy favourites. And this game is happening at 2:30 on Sunday at Semple Stadium. I suppose for Knockmore Castleiney, on the other hand side of things, I mean, it's going to be tough for them. They played, Knockmore Castleiney have a lot of dual players. John McGrath, Noel McGrath, Brian McGrath. A lot of the McGraths, in this Knockmore Castleiney side also play hurling. They had the hurling final last weekend. That's obviously drawn, and that's going to be going to a replay, so they still have that game to think about next weekend as well. Interestingly enough, there won't be a replay for this game, so if it is level, it will go to extra time, and if it's still level, it will go to penalties. I am going to tip Clonmel Commercials. I think they're the more seasoned team in Tipperary. They've certainly have experience of coming through more of these finals. I know Knockmore won it back in 2014, but I'm going to go with Clonmel to win it by 2 points. Now, there is also a Dublin football final happening this weekend between Kilmacud Crokes and St. Jude's. Now, I'm not going to speak about it in this video because I did in fact record an in-depth preview for this game already with Seamus Brady of the Play On GAA podcast, so that video will already be available on the channel. Just click into the channel, click into the most recent uploads, and you'll see it there. Dublin Senior Football Championship final preview between St. Jude's and Kilmacud Crokes. So if you want to see my thoughts on that game and see an in-depth preview and discussion around everything that might happen in that game, then click into that video. Now, another game I'm very interested to see this weekend is the Kerry Senior Football Championship Semi-Finals. We've got St. Brendan's taking on Austin Stacks. I nearly forgot that one. And you've got Dr. Crokes taking on Kerrins O'Rahilly. So two very intriguing games in the Kerry Senior Football Championship. And I mean, I know the Kerry Senior Football Championship is very sort of confusing for most people because you've got the Kerry Club Senior Football Championship and then the Kerry Senior Football Championship. I'm not going to explain all of it right now because it would be a bit like trying to teach a giraffe how to play hurling, which might be a little easier, to be fair, or would it? I don't really know. Probably not, in all honesty. Actually, St. Brendan's are a divisional side, so if they win this game against Austin Stacks and then beat Dr. Crokes or Kerrins O'Rahilly's, it makes things very confusing and I have no idea what happens next. But the good news is Austin Stacks are very good at beating divisional sides. They beat East Kerry already. Of course, East Kerry were the current champions. They won it last year and they won it the year before, and obviously have notable players like David Clifford and Paddy Clifford in there. Austin Stacks beat them in the opening round and they then follow that up with a win over South Kerry. So they certainly are the kings of beating divisional sides, and hopefully, for everyone's sake, they can go and beat St. Brendan's this weekend as well. And I mean, obviously Kieran Donaghy's probably a player that most people know of right there. And Austin Stacks, they are one of the most successful clubs in Kerry, no doubt about it. But of course, they've only won one Kerry Senior Football Championship since 1999. That was back in 2014. So I suppose it would be great for Kieran Donaghy and great for that club to come through this game and make it to the final. And also with players like Joseph O'Connor and Jack O'Shea, they're certainly looking very good at the moment. So to be honest, I don't know a lot about St. Brendan's. I tried to review a lot of match reports. The Kerry Senior Football Championship, it's very hard to find out information, unfortunately, for a lot of games. A lot of the match reports are behind paywalls, which is also very infuriating, in all honesty, when you're trying to find out information and then you have to pay for it. It's just like, really? Come on, like, can you just... I just want to see who scored, man. So yeah, I think with Austin Stacks having won the Club Senior Football Championship this year, which is the other championship that I was just speaking about, with the fact that they won that and the fact they beat East Kerry, I think they should be good enough to win this game, in my opinion. So yeah, Austin Stacks will get the win. And I do hope it's Dr. Crokes that they play in the final, because Dr. Crokes are obviously the other most successful side in the Kerry Senior Football Championship. I actually think Dr. Crokes have more Senior Football Championships than Austin Stacks, from what I remember anyways. And obviously with players like Micheál Burns and Tony Brosnan, I mean, they have a whole host of quality through their ranks. And coming up against a Kerrins O'Rahilly side that does of course have David Moore in their ranks, but I would look at Dr. Crokes as the favourites. And I think a Dr. Crokes versus Austin Stacks Kerry Senior Football Championship final, that would be very, very interesting. That'd be one certainly to dig your teeth at and get very, very excited. So certainly I hope that happens. I hope it does happen. As I said, I haven't seen enough of the Kerry Football Championship to make an accurate preview, but hopefully Dr. Crokes, Austin Stacks in the final. That would be great. Now, there are some other county finals happening this weekend, and we'll just run through them very quickly. So you have the Fermanagh Senior Football Championship final between Derry Gonley and Enniskillen. Enniskillen haven't won the Fermanagh Senior Football Championship since 2006. So that will certainly be an interesting game. It's happening at 3 p.m. on Sunday at Brewster Park. And Derry Gonley Harps, meanwhile, they actually won 5 county titles in a row before they were stopped last year by St. Joseph's Ederny. So this will be an interesting one. Obviously, Derry Gonley will certainly be the favourites with the fact that they were dominant for so long. But Enniskillen, they haven't won this since 2006. And if there's any sort of trend we've seen from club championships this year, is that ending away, ending a drought, ending a famine is very, very common. So one definitely worth keeping an eye on, the Fermanagh Senior Football Championship, happening this weekend. And if that's not enough, you've also got the Waterford Senior Football Championship, which is also taking place on Sunday at Fraher Field, also at 2 p.m. And this is between the Nor and Rathgormack. Rathgormack are probably the most notable side here in this competition, having won the competition back in 2019. But the Nor, they were champions in 2018 as well, and both have usually been the best in Waterford over the past couple of years. But to be fair, Rathgormack's 2019 championship win was actually their first since 1999. So, I mean, maybe they're not as dominant as what I would suggest, but they were beaten in the final last year. They did win it in 2019, so they'll certainly be the team that's entering as favourites anyways. And then we move on to the Provincial Club Football Championship games happening this weekend, and we'll start with the Connacht Club Senior Football Championship, which has Turlestrand versus St. Kieran's and Ballinamore Sean O'Heslin's versus Mount Bellew Moylock. Two very intriguing games, two games I'm very excited for. I was trying to find out if the Ballinamore versus Mount Bellew Moylock is being streamed anywhere this weekend. I couldn't find it. Unfortunately, I'd love to do a match reaction and watch that game, but I'm not too sure if it is being streamed anywhere or is being broadcasted anywhere, unfortunately. But Turlestrand versus St. Kieran's, first of all, an interesting game because Turlestrand, the current champions of Sligo, they've actually won the Sligo Senior Football Championship 6 years in a row. So they're coming into this Connacht Club Football Championship, I suppose, on a regular basis, having won it 6 years in a row. But interesting enough, despite having won the Sligo Senior Football Championship for 6 years in a row, they haven't won a game outside of Sligo in the Connacht Club Senior Football Championship since 2012. So, you know, the last time they won a game in Connacht, and it was also the last win for a Sligo team. So that probably tells you that their record in the Connacht Club Football Championship isn't particularly brilliant. But they are coming up against St. Kieran's of London, and I certainly would expect Turlestrand to get this victory. I mean, look, listen, I'm going to be perfectly honest, don't know a whole lot about St. Kieran's. Obviously, GAA in London has probably been affected, heavily affected because of COVID, and obviously the county team couldn't play in this year's championship, couldn't play in last year's championship. They got, suspended from the league, obviously, because of COVID and whatnot. So it's been very tough for them. It's been very tough for London. I hope this isn't like too one-sided, and I do hope they give a good account of themselves, and I hope the gap isn't too notable, and I hope it's the same as well when London play in the league and in the championship in 2022, because I think it's great to have them involved, and I really do hope that GAA kicks on in places like London and New York and whatnot. So hopefully they give a good account of themselves, and look, listen, they'll probably be happy with the fact they're playing Turlestrand, because Turlestrand haven't won a game in this competition since 2012. It's probably, with all due respect, both sides are probably happy to be playing each other. So it'll be an interesting game, no doubt about it. I will go with Turlestrand though. Surely, with some players in there like John Kelly, James Leonard, Liam Gohan, and one Ryan Bailey, who you might recognise as the podcast host of the Ball Talk podcast. He came off the bench in the Sligo Senior Football Final and kicked the point. So best of luck to him as well. So Turlestrand, I think, will get the win. They'll then play the Mayo Senior Football Champions in the semi-finals, which should make for an interesting game. So yeah, I'm going to go with Turlestrand to get the victory. And as I said, Ballinamore Sean O'Heslin's going up against Mount Bellew Moylock. I mean, this will be a very intriguing game, no doubt about it. And actually, a lot of people are tipping Ballinamore to potentially pull off the big shock. I mean, personally, I don't see it. I don't see it happening, in all honesty. Like, Ballinamore, look, listen, fair play to them. What a brilliant game that was against Mohill in the Leitrim Senior Football Championship. I mean, that was a cracking game of football, and undoubtedly one of the games of the year in football, especially in terms of county finals anyways. And I'm sure Andy Moran was watching that game as the Leitrim manager and thinking, look, we have a lot of players to work with here. But to be perfectly honest, I understand the romanticism in football, and we all love to see a shock. We love to see a big scalp. We love to see sides go on a run, and you had Mullinachta and Longford there a few years ago who pulled off a gigantic shock when they beat Kilmacud Crokes. And I suppose Leitrim and Longford isn't too different in terms of size difference. So for Ballinamore to pull off a huge shock, maybe it's not inconceivable and maybe it's not impossible, but I just don't see it. Like, Mount Bellew Moylock looks so good against Corofin. They were brilliant against Mike Cullen as well. They've looked very good so far this year. They've been a team knocking on the door year in, year out in the Galway Senior Football Football Championship. We've seen the success of Corofin. If Corofin had beaten Mountbelly Moylock in that final, they would have been coming into this All-Ireland series as favourites. Absolutely no doubt about it. So for me, Mountbelly Moylock, whilst they're not quite favourites yet, because we'll need to see how they get on in the Connacht Championship and obviously the All-Ireland series, we'll need to see how they play a bit more, but they're definitely coming into this game as favourites. Absolutely no doubt about it. With players like Owen Finnerty, Barry McHugh, John and Michael Daly, you've also got Colin Ryan, very good wingback, and of course Shane Moran in midfields look very impressive as well. So I just think Mountbelly Moylock, like the sheer sort of the energy that they played with in that game versus Corofin was frightening. The intensity of the tackle, the turnovers, the work rate, the sheer physicality of them was absolutely brilliant, and I just don't see how Ballinamore are going to deal with that, in all honesty. And I don't think this will be heavily one-sided. Like, I don't think this would be like what we see in Inter-County where Leitrim got absolutely demolished by Mayo. You know, I only think there'll be 6 or 7 points in it, maybe even less. Like, it will be a competitive game, no doubt about it, but I do think Mountbelly and Moylock will have too much for Ballinamore. And also on Sunday at 1:30pm, you've got the meeting of the Derry Senior Football Champions, Waddy Graham's Glen, and also the Donegal Senior Football Champions, St. Eunan's. And a very intriguing game, and I'm very excited to see Glen, because there is a lot of hype around Waddy Graham's Glen at the moment. As a matter of fact, they are the second favourites right now, according to the bookies, to win the All-Ireland. They're 5-1 to win the All-Ireland, which is very interesting. It is very interesting because they just came through Derry for the very first time. They won the Derry Senior Football Championship for the very first time. They beat a very good Slot Neal team. For those who don't know, I mean, they've got the likes of Chrissy McKagan there. They're a very good team, Slot Neal. And, you know, if Slot Neal had come through Derry, a lot of people would have been looking at them as one of the sides to potentially come through Ulster. And they are going to be contenders for the All-Ireland in the All-Ireland Senior Club Hurling Championship, no doubt about it. So, you know, what a huge win it was, and they won that game very, very convincingly. I didn't see it live, I seen the highlights, and you're looking at players like Emmett Bradley and Conor Glass, who obviously came back from AFL, and he's probably one of the most talked about players in Derry football at the minute. But you add Kieran McFowlin there and Danny Talon, they have a whole host of notable players and inter-county stars, top-class footballers, and manager and Malachy O'Rourke. I mean, they're looking very, very good at the minute, Glen. Absolutely no doubt about it. Do I see them as the second favourites in terms of the All-Ireland series? I mean, it just seems a little early. I don't know what it is, but it seems like a risky bet, in my opinion. Like, the Ulster Championship is so competitive. St. Eunan's are no mugs. Like, they're a good team coming through Donegal. You've got Scottstown of Monaghan in there, who've got a whole host of good players. Kilcoo are another one of the favourites that are being mentioned, obviously coming through Down. They came through Ulster the last time and obviously made the All-Ireland final. So there's a whole host of teams in there. There's Tyrone Senior Football Champions as well. So, and I've certainly seen a lot of people tipping Glen for the All-Ireland. I mean, I've seen the reaction on Twitter. I've seen some people even in YouTube comments. I think one person said in one of my match reactions that Glen were going to walk through Ulster. There's a lot of hype around them, and sometimes when there's a lot of hype around a team, they don't quite deliver what you're expecting. But, I mean, they do, as I said before, have a lot of very notable players. St. Eunan's, however, do have a couple of good players of their own, as a matter of fact. I mean, Niall O'Donnell, Shane O'Donnell, the O'Donnells, you know, the O'Donnell bros, the trio of brothers, looked very good in that win over Navy Connell, of course, in the Donegal Senior Football Championship final. And they do have a star-studded goalkeeper in Sean Patton, who a lot of people would be familiar with from the Donegal Senior Football Championship final. So, you know, St. Eunan's could pull off a shock here. I don't see Glen completely walking through them. St. Eunan's very well organised defensively. They were very good against Navy Connell. They didn't concede too much. Very well organised side. I could see them frustrating Glen. I think this will be low scoring. It'll be a matter of patience for Glen, and they'll need to work their way through it. And, you know, one thing about this Glen side is there isn't experience in these big games, and that's why I do think the 5-1 odds for them to win an All-Ireland, which actually is still a good price, to be fair, but they are just second favourites. It's going to be interesting, but I am going to go with them to get the victory, as I said before. Do think there's a lot of quality in there. And if I'm going to believe the hype that everyone's saying, they surely got to come through this game. And then you've got 3 Leinster Club Senior Football Championship games that is happening. These are also happening on the Sunday, but at 1 p.m. All 3 of them at the same time, 1 o'clock. All 3 of them also live on BO Sport as well. You've got Naomh Martin versus Rathvilly. Naomh Martin of Louth, Rathvilly of Carlow. You've got the Offaly champions Tullamore taking on the Kildare champions in Naas. And then you've got the Longford champions Mulliniochta against the Wicklow champions in Blessington. Now, I am going to watch one of these games and do a live match reaction, not directly after the game because there's a couple of games going on TG Cahir, but a little bit later on Sunday evening I'll do a match reaction to one of these games. So let me know down in the comments below which one you want me to watch. I'm kind of torn between watching Naomh Martin versus... I mean, I'm torn between all three because I'd love to get a good glimpse of all three of these games, no doubt about it. I mean, Naomh Martin versus Rathvilly, first of all, I mean, as I said before in one of my previous videos or previous podcasts or whatever, I think Naomh Martin are a little kind of dark horse for the Leinster. You know, I don't think they'll win it, but I think they could cause a surprise or two. I really do. You've got notable players in there like Samuel Roy, very well-known, loud senior footballer. You've got JP Rooney in there as well. Jim McGuinness has been heavily involved with that club down the years. He was actually very involved with the club last year. He might be involved this year, but I honestly don't know. I mean, he kind of let it slip in the media last year when he wasn't supposed to, so I'm sure that's being kept under wraps this year, although he is very involved with the Derry footballers, the Derry soccer team. So I don't know, he probably isn't, to be fair. But look, listen, they're a very good team, a lot of very good players. They've won back-to-back Louth champions now, or Louth championships, going up against Rathvilly, who of course beat Éire Óg, and Éire Óg are certainly no mugs in Carlow either. So it'll be an intriguing game, but I do fancy Naomh Martin to get the victory there. Tullamore versus Naas is an interesting one as well. Tullamore have a whole host of Offaly under-20 footballers in their ranks. Cormac Egan, John Furlong. So they're a good side as well, and they're certainly no mugs. And they're another team that could potentially go on a little run in Leinster, you know, potential dark horses and whatnot. So they could be a side that could go on a bit of a run. Who knows? We'll see what happens, but I am going to go with them to get the victory over Naas as well. And last but not least, you have Mullinachta going up against Blessington. This is another intriguing and interesting game as well, no doubt about it, because I suppose Mullinachta, the last time they obviously were in the Leinster Club Senior Football Championship, they won it in 2018. They produced that massive shock over Kilmacud Crokes. And what's kind of interesting is if Kilmacud Crokes come through the Leinster Club Senior Football, or if Kilmacud Crokes come through the Dublin final this weekend and win all their games, Mullinachta win all their games, they'll eventually meet each other in a Leinster Club Senior Football final, which would be a repeat of course what happened in 2018 when Mullinachta beat Kilmacud Crokes. So you could see that fairy tale, or not fairy tale, but there'd be such a storyline going on there, you know. Could Kilmacud Crokes get revenge? Could Mullinachta pull off the big shock again? I'd be very intrigued to see if that game does in fact happen, and I do expect them to get past Blessington with all due respect. I mean, Mullinachta look a little bit stronger now as well. I mean, they've added Cian Mackey to their ranks, who of course has transferred over from Cavan Club Football. Rian Brady's a very notable player in the Longford Senior Football side. David McGivney's another good player in there as well. And Blessington, they won their first Wicklow Senior Football Championship in 38 years. So that was obviously a huge achievement for them. Very notable achievement, no doubt about it. I just think this is a bit of a step up. And look, listen, if it was the Longford County side against the Wicklow County side, you know, you'd fancy Longford to win the game, but you wouldn't be saying Longford would win this very comfortably. But because of what Mullinachta done in 2018, you're kind of looking at them and you're thinking, I feel like they're going to win this game quite comfortably. I might be wrong. There's loads of shocks in there, but I think Mullinachta are going to win it quite comfortably. And before we finish up, we'll touch on the two hurling games that is happening this weekend, two notable hurling games. You've got the Offaly Senior Hurling Championship between Coolderry versus St. Rynagh's. That's happening at Borden O'Connor Park, 2 p.m. on Sunday. And you've got the Galway Senior Hurling Championship semi-final between Gort and St. Thomas. Interesting enough, of course, Gort had the COVID outbreak in their camp, so that was the reason why this game has been pushed back a couple of weeks. Gort did eventually pull out of the Galway Championship, and then St. Thomas have accommodated them and made sure they could re-accommodate the game, and they've, you know, stepped in and said they will play the game on the Saturday or whatever, or the Sunday. So fair play to St. Thomas there for, you know, stepping in. Very good, you know, good of them to do so. Will they be as accommodating if they somehow happen to lose this game? I mean, it's a bit like Tyrone Kerry all over again, but we'll see what happens anyway. You would fancy St. Thomas to win that. They've been the dominant force in Galway over the past couple of years. And, you know, I seen one of their results earlier in the year in the Galway Senior Hurling Championship where they won by like 26 points. So, you know, I think they'll win that game quite comfortably. And as for the Offaly Senior Hurling Championship, Coolderry have been more or less the dominant force there over the last couple of years. St. Rynagh's have been close-ish as well, but I'm going to go with Coolderry. But anyway, lads, we're going to go ahead and wrap this up here. Do leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. If you've noticed, I've kind of changed. I'm trying to work on a bit of a studio at the moment, which is why I've got a bit of a different setup here at the minute, so just bear with me in regards to that, but hopefully it looks okay. But yeah, leave a like and subscribe if you can already. There will be match reactions out this weekend for all the games that are being broadcasted live on TV, and as I said before, I'll be watching one of the Leinster club games as well. I did want to watch the Ballinamore versus Mount Ballymoy game, but I don't think that's being broadcasted anywhere from what I've seen. So, but yeah, leave a like, subscribe if you could. There will be a show out Monday as well where we review all the action as always. My name is Aaron. I'll see you all on the next one.